Before the first scream even finished echoing through the hallway, the vase shattered against the marble floor. Glass flew. The nanny barely had time to turn before something heavy crashed into her back. She stumbled forward, palms scraping hard against the wall, breath ripped from her lungs. Laughter burst behind her. Not giggles. Sharp, fearless laughter. 3 voices. 3 shadows. 3 disasters. Run faster next time, 12-year-old Dante shouted. Count again, dummy, 11-year-old Draco added. 9-year-old Nyx simply smiled as she pulled the fire alarm. The mansion exploded into noise. Red lights flashed. Sprinklers burst open. Water poured down in violent sheets. The nanny screamed this time for real. Within minutes, security stormed in. The triplets vanished like smoke. The nanny was found shaking on the floor, drenched, bleeding from her palms, mascara streaked down her face. I quit, she sobbed. I quit right now. And just like that, she became the 24th nanny in 18 months to fail. 2 hours later, her suitcase was rolling down the driveway. Another 48-hour record shattered. Inside the mansion, the triplets sat on the staircase railing, swinging their legs, perfectly calm. Think the next one lasts longer? Draco asked. 2 days max, Dante said. Nyx only shrugged. They always leave. Up on the balcony above them, their father watched in silence. Roman Blackwood. The name alone froze cities. To the world, he was the most feared mafia boss in the region. Cold. Methodical. Untouchable. But to those 3 children below him, he was just a man who had failed. He turned away. Across the city, in a leaking 1-room apartment, Talia Morgan counted her last money on the edge of a broken table. 3 crumpled notes. Not even enough for rent. Her daughter slept on the mattress behind her, small chest rising and falling gently. 5 years old. Too young to understand eviction notices taped to doors. Talia pressed her palm to her forehead. Just one job, she whispered to no one. Just one chance. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Are you still interested in the nanny position? The woman on the line asked briskly. Talia swallowed. Yes. Very interested. There was a pause. You do understand the warnings, right? Talia hesitated again. I understand the pay. The woman exhaled slowly. Be at Blackwood Estate by 7 a.m. tomorrow. The line went dead. Talia stared at the phone. Blackwood. Even she knew that name. Fear slid quietly into her chest. But hunger sat louder. She packed her bag that night. Morning arrived too fast. The estate gates opened with mechanical silence. The mansion rose ahead like a fortress made of glass and shadow. Armed security scanned her from head to toe. She stepped out of the car holding her worn bag with both hands. Inside, staff moved quickly and carefully, like people who had learned not to be seen. She was led into a massive sitting room. The triplets were already there. 3 identical faces. 3 different souls. Dante lounged upside down on a sofa, dark eyes sharp with mischief. Draco sat atop a table, kicking his heels against expensive wood. Nyx stood near the window, quiet, unreadable. They studied her. Predators sizing prey. Another one? Dante said lazily. She looks poor, Draco added. Nyx tilted her head. She will cry first. Talia did not flinch. She met their eyes calmly. My name is Talia, she said softly. I'll be taking care of you. They burst into laughter. Roman watched from behind the one-way glass upstairs. He gave her less than a day. The first attack came before noon. Draco poured oil down the main staircase. Dante pretended to trip. Talia slipped, fell hard, slammed her shoulder. Pain shot up her arm. They waited for the scream. She grunted, stood up slowly, wiped her hands on her jeans. Accidents happen, she said. They blinked. The second attack came at lunch. Nyx swapped the labels on food trays. Dante claimed an allergic reaction. Security rushed in. Roman was summoned. The lie unraveled in minutes. Talia was blamed. She did not argue. The third attack came that evening. They locked her inside the walk-in freezer. Dark. Cold. Silent. She banged once. Twice. Then she stopped. She slid down the wall and pulled her knees to her chest. Not here, she whispered to herself. Not again. Outside, the children waited. 10 minutes passed. 20. No screams. Nyx's smile faded. They unlocked the door. Talia stumbled out, shaking violently, lips blue. Dante expected shouting. Draco expected tears. Instead, she looked at them and said quietly, "Please don't do that again." Her voice broke on the last word. For just 1 second, something unfamiliar flickered in their eyes. Then it vanished. That night, Talia sat on the edge of the bed in the small staff room, staring at her bruised shoulder. She should leave. Everyone else did. Her phone buzzed. A message from her landlord. 2 days. She lay back slowly. I can last 2 days, she whispered. Down the hall, the triplets planned day 2. Morning came again. No traps this time. No explosions. Just silence. Too quiet. Talia moved through the kitchen alone. Staff avoided her. She sensed the storm waiting. Then she stopped. She stood still. Listened. The children had not come down for breakfast. No plates smashed. No alarms. No laughter. Just absence. She hesitated. Then she turned on the stove. She cracked eggs. She sliced bread. She stirred soup. Slowly. Steadily. The smell of food crept through the mansion. The triplets watched from the stairs. Confused. Suspicious. Nix whispered, "What is she doing?" Draco frowned. "Waiting for us to mess it up." Dante smirked. "Let's see." They stepped into the kitchen. Talia turned, startled, then smiled. "Good morning," she said gently. "I made breakfast." They stared. The table was already set. 3 plates. Steam rose softly. No one had ever done this for them without shouting their names through walkie-talkies. For once, there was no challenge. No game. Just food. They sat. Slowly. As if the table might bite. Dante took the first bite. He froze. Nix watched him chew. Draco followed. Silence filled the room. Not hostile silence. Something else. Upstairs, Roman Blackwood stood frozen at the balcony, watching through the glass as his children ate quietly for the first time in years. His breath caught. And for the first time since their mother died, the house did not feel like a battlefield. If you are already hooked into the story, tap that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment right now so you don't miss how deep the story is about to go. Dante was the first to break the spell. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and looked up at her, almost annoyed. "Why are you staring like that?" he asked. Talia blinked. "Like what?" "Like you're proud or something," Draco muttered, stabbing his toast. Nix didn't speak. She watched Talia the way a cat watched a door. Talia took a breath. "I'm just glad you're eating. You didn't eat much yesterday." Draco scoffed. "You sound like a nurse." "Or a mom," Dante added, rolling his eyes. Nix's fork paused midair. Talia's throat tightened. For a moment she saw her own daughter's face overlapping theirs. The sleepy smile. The way she clung to that stuffed bear. She pushed the image away. "I sound like someone whose job is to keep you alive," she said lightly. Dante smirked. "No one lasts long enough to care." 48 hours, Draco said. "That's the record." Nix looked straight at her. "How long do you think you'll last?" Talia forced a small smile. "Long enough to make breakfast again tomorrow." The triplets fell quiet. Bold. They weren't used to promises. Adults usually said things like, "We'll see," and "as long as I can." Promises were dangerous. Dante pointed his fork at her. "We'll see." Roman turned away from the glass when his phone vibrated. "Talk," he said, answering without looking at the screen. His right-hand man's voice came through, low and controlled. "The shipment arrived." "No interruptions." "Good," Roman replied. "And the docs." "Already handled." "But there's something else." A pause. "Security reports say the kids locked the new nanny in the freezer yesterday." Roman's jaw clenched. "And?" "She didn't quit." That pulled his attention back. "She didn't file a complaint?" he asked. "No. She just went back to work." Roman hung up without replying. He looked down at the kitchen again, watched the slight slope of Talia's shoulders as she moved around the table, refilling juice without being asked, picking up crumbs without snapping her fingers at staff. Most people in his world only did what they were paid extra for. She was doing more with nothing. Suspicion pricked at the back of his neck. People didn't survive as children and stay calm without a reason. He needed to know hers. The day did not stay soft. By noon, the house felt different. Not peaceful. Not chaotic. Just unsettled. Like everyone inside was waiting to see what would snap first. Talia stood outside the triplet study room with a stack of books in her arms. "School," Dante said, horrified. "What, you're going to teach us now?" Draco added. Nix sat cross-legged on the desk, staring at Talia as if she might remove a mask and reveal fangs. "There's a tutor on schedule," Dante pointed out. "Tutor called in sick," Talia said. "So it's me or nothing." "Nothing," Draco said immediately. Dante grabbed his game console. "Definitely nothing." Nix hopped off the desk. "We're not babies." Talia put the books down. "You're also not stupid." "That's worse." All three turned to her slowly. "Did she just insult us?" Draco narrowed his eyes. "What did you just say?" "You're not stupid," Talia repeated. "So you know exactly what happens to kids who grow up rich and dumb. They get manipulated. Used. Broken. I've seen it. I don't want that for you. Her voice was too steady, too honest. No sugar. I don't care what you want, Dante snapped. I do, Nyx said quietly, eyes still on Talia. That shut the room up. Talia felt her heart flick. Okay, there it is. She pushed a book toward Nyx. You first, then. Dante scoffed. She's just trying to impress our father. Talia whirled on him with more heat than she intended. Your father doesn't scare me, she said. The room went dead still. Even she heard it. Lies, her body screamed. He absolutely scares you. But Dante stared, genuinely thrown. Every adult in that house tiptoed around Roman Blackwood's name like it was a gun. Everyone is scared of him, Draco said slowly. Talia shrugged. Maybe. I'm more scared of my landlord. What's a landlord? Nyx asked. Draco rolled his eyes. Someone who owns poor people's houses. Someone who owns poor people's time, Talia corrected softly. Now. Math. She opened the book before they could argue. Small victory. But in that house, small victories were explosions. In Roman's office, security footage played silently on a wide monitor. He watched the scene in the study. Watched his son's attitude slam into Talia's calm. Watched Nyx break first. She's different, his second-in-command said from behind him. Roman didn't answer. The man stepped closer. We did a background check. Talia Morgan. Age 28. Single mother. No criminal history. Worked as a waitress, cleaner, part-time caregiver. Nothing flags. No debt to my enemies? No unpaid favors? Roman asked. None that touched our circles, the man answered. She's clean. Too clean for this city. Roman didn't like clean things. Clean things always hid the most dirt. Keep watching her, he said. Quietly. By late afternoon, the triplets had stopped trying to escape the study. Mostly because Talia used their own tactics against them. When Dante pretended to faint to avoid reading, she didn't panic. She flicked water in his face and walked away. When Draco tried to set a paper on fire to end the session, she snatched the lighter, pocketed it, and said, if you want flames, you can work in the kitchen tonight. He went quiet. Nyx, who hadn't done homework properly in months, found herself actually writing. What are you doing? Dante hissed at her. Her job, Nyx said without looking up. Draco scoffed. You actually like her or what? Nyx's pen paused. She thought about the freezer. The dark. The way Talia had come out, lips blue, eyes wet but not angry. She thought about breakfast. I like that she didn't scream, Nyx murmured. Dante had no answer for that. That evening, the storm finally cracked. Talia was walking down the hallway to her room when a sharp voice snapped behind her. Miss Morgan. She froze. Roman Blackwood didn't need to raise his voice. His tone alone frightened people into instant obedience. She turned slowly. Seeing him directly was different from glimpsing him from a distance. He was taller up close. Colder. Eyes like someone who had stared at dead bodies long enough to stop flinching. Sir, she managed, hands unconsciously clutching the strap of her bag. He looked her over for a long, assessing moment. No fear, he thought. But he could see the small tremor in her fingers. So, not fearless. Just stubborn. I've been told my children stayed in the study for 3 hours today, he said. Without breaking anything. Yes, Talia replied. How? His voice held mild curiosity, like he was asking about weather patterns, not his own kids. I talked to them, she said. Others talked, he replied. They failed. She licked her lips. I didn't. Negotiate. You threatened them? No, she straightened slightly. I treated them like people who can make choices. And then I held them to those choices. He watched her closely. You think my children are capable of that? Yes. Most people think they're monsters. Talia's gaze didn't drop. Monsters are made when no one tells them the truth. Silence thickened between them. Roman stepped closer. Who told you that? He asked. Her breath hitched. A memory flashed. A man's hand on her wrist, cold metal pressed to her side, a whisper in her ear. Monsters are made, not born. She swallowed hard. No one, she lied. It just makes sense. Roman almost smiled. Almost. Most nannies ask for hazard pay by now, he said. You haven't asked for anything. I need this job, she said simply. That's enough. What do you need it for? Her chest tightened at the thought of her daughter's shoes, worn thin at the soles. Living, she said. Rent. Food. Your family. My daughter, she said quietly. She's 5. Roman's eyes shifted, just slightly. Where is her father? He asked. Gone. It was the truth and a lie at the same time. Roman didn't press. He stepped back, expression unreadable. If you ever feel unsafe, you leave, he said. Understand. Talia blinked. Of all the things she expected him to say, that wasn't on the list. Yes, sir, she whispered. He turned away. Paused. And Miss Morgan? She stiffened. Yes. Don't lie to my kids, he said without looking back. They've seen enough to know when someone is pretending to care. He walked off. Talia stood alone in the hallway, heart pounding. She wasn't pretending. That was the problem. Back in their room, the triplets were pressed against the door, listening to the fading footsteps. He talked to her, Draco whispered. He never talks to them, Dante said slowly. He just fires them. Nyx sat on the bed, legs tucked under her. Maybe. He won't fire this one, she said softly. Dante scoffed. But the idea lingered. And for the first time in a long time, they didn't plan any new traps before bed. Night settled over the estate like a held breath. The kind of quiet that felt temporary. Talia lay awake in the narrow staff bed, staring at the ceiling. Her phone rested on her chest. One unread message. She had been too afraid to open it all evening. She finally did. From the neighbor who watched her daughter. She cried tonight. Asked when you're coming back. I told her soon. Talia turned her face into the pillow so no one would hear the sound that slipped out of her. She pressed her fist into her mouth and waited for the ache to fade. 2 days, she told herself. Just 2 days. In another wing of the mansion, 3 children lay wide awake for the first time without plotting. Draco stared at the ceiling. She's still here. Barely, Dante muttered. They always leave on the 3rd day. Nyx hugged her knees. What if she doesn't? The question floated between them. Dante rolled onto his side. Then we'll make her. But he didn't sound convinced. The next morning cracked open with shouting. Not from the kids. From the staff. A tray clattered to the floor in the kitchen. Someone cursed. Heavy footsteps rushed through the hall. Talia bolted upright in her bed, heart hammering. She threw on her sweater and ran. By the time she reached the kitchen, 2 guards stood stiffly near the back door. A bleeding boy lay on the floor. One of the youngest kitchen assistants. Blood pooled beneath his arm. He broke into the storage, one guard said sharply. We think he was stealing. The boy whimpered. I just wanted my phone. I left it in there. The guard grabbed him by the collar. You don't step into restricted areas in this house. The boy sobbed harder. Talia's stomach dropped. She pushed forward without thinking. Let go of him. Every head turned. The guard frowned. Stay back. This doesn't concern you. It concerns me, she shot back. He's bleeding. The man hesitated. That's when Roman stepped in. What's going on? He asked calmly. The guard released the boy instantly. Trespassing, sir. Roman knelt slowly beside the injured assistant. Inspected the wound. It's a glass cut, Talia said quickly. Deep but not fatal. He needs stitches, not threats. Roman glanced up at her. She was already tearing strips from her sleeve, pressing them against the wound with steady hands. The boy gasped but obeyed her instructions. Pressure, she told him gently. Breathe with me. The room held still. Roman watched in silence as the bleeding slowed beneath her care. Take him to the infirmary, Roman ordered finally. The guards obeyed. As the crowd dispersed, Roman remained. You stepped into armed conflict without permission, he said. Talia stiffened. I stepped into medical care. Most people in this house fear my men, he said. I fear blood loss, she replied. For a second, something like amusement flickered in his eyes. Then it disappeared. Be careful, he said. Bravery is expensive here. She lowered her gaze. But upstairs, 3 small faces had watched the entire thing from behind the railing. Dante whispered. She yelled at a guard. Draco whispered back. She didn't even shake. Nyx's fingers tightened around the banister. No adult had ever done that for someone else in this house. The shift was subtle after that. But it was real. By noon, Nyx sat beside Talia in the kitchen, quietly slicing carrots under supervision. Draco pretended not to hover nearby. Dante sprawled on the counter, pretending not to listen. Why do you always help people? Nyx asked suddenly. Talia paused. Because someone once helped me when I didn't deserve it. Draco snorted. Everyone deserves help. Talia glanced at him. That is the most dangerous lie humans tell themselves. Nyx studied her. So why help then? Because people change when someone believes they can. Dante scoffed. Belief doesn't stop bad things. No, Talia agreed softly. But it teaches you how to stand after them. The kitchen fell quiet. For the first time, no one laughed. That afternoon, Roman's enemies made their first move. A convoy attempted to breach one of the outer supply routes. Shots were fired. 1 car exploded. 2 men died. By sunset, Roman had crushed the retaliators. But the echo followed him home. He returned late, still wrapped in the shadow of violence. He found the triplets seated at the dining table. With Talia. They were eating quietly. No games. No chaos. Just dinner. The sight struck him harder than any bullet. Dante noticed him first. You're late. Roman stopped just inside the doorway. Business. Mom never came home late, Draco said without thinking. The word landed like glass. The room froze. Talia's breath caught painfully. Roman's jaw tightened. I'm not her, he said coldly. Draco winced. Nyx slipped her hand into Talia's sleeve. A silent plea. Don't let this break. Talia took a slow breath. He didn't say you were. Roman's eyes flicked to her. He just said he noticed, she continued gently. Dante shifted uncomfortably. We always notice. Roman stared at his food as if seeing it for the first time. Then he sat. Slowly. Awkwardly. No one spoke. After a minute, Nyx pushed her plate toward him. You should eat too, she said. Roman looked at the plate. Then at his daughter. He picked up his fork. The room exhaled. Later that night, Roman stood alone on the balcony. Talia stepped out quietly, not realizing he was there. She stopped short when she saw him. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't mean to interrupt. You didn't, he replied. You disturbed. She hesitated, then stepped closer to the railing. They miss their mother, she said simply. He did not respond. They're angry because no one taught them how to be sad, she added. His grip tightened on the railing. You assume much, he said. I observe, she said. Silence hung between them again. Your daughter, Roman said suddenly. Does she live nearby? Talia's chest tightened. No. Where? With someone I trust. Another truth wrapped in lie. Roman studied her profile. You speak of trust as if it's not currency. It isn't, she said. It's oxygen. He exhaled sharply. You won't last long in my world without thinking. I don't plan to live in your world, she said quietly. Just pass through it. He turned to face her fully. Everyone who passes through leaves different, he said. So do those who stay, she replied. Their eyes locked. Something unspoken crackled between them. Then footsteps rushed behind them. A guard burst onto the balcony. Sir, he said urgently. We picked up movement near the eastern perimeter. One target slipped through before we shut it down. Roman's body went rigid. How far inside? He demanded. Unknown. Roman turned sharply toward the mansion. Lock the children in their rooms, he ordered. Talia's blood ran cold. They're in the west wing, she said quickly. The perimeter breach was east. Roman was already moving. What's happening? She demanded. War doesn't knock, he replied. She ran after him without thinking. In the west wing, Dante was playing a game. Draco was asleep. Nyx sat by the window. Nyx's eyes widened. I hear steps, she whispered. Dante paused the game. Guards. Not heavy enough, she said. The handle turned slowly. The door creaked open. A shadow slipped inside. And then chaos detonated. Nyx screamed. Dante hurled his console. Draco woke up yelling. The intruder lunged. The door slammed open again. Roman's gun rose in one smooth movement. The shot rang through the room like thunder. The intruder fell. Dead. Silence crashed down after the echo. Talia burst in seconds later. She found the triplets huddled against the wall. Roman standing over the body. Blood spreading across the carpet. Nyx's scream tore through the room again. Talia dropped to her knees instantly, pulling the girl into her arms, covering her eyes. It's okay, she whispered desperately. You're safe. You're safe. Roman lowered the gun slowly. For the first time, the children saw his hands shake. And for the first time, Roman realized this was no longer just a house. It was a target. And Talia realized the truth she had tried to ignore since stepping through the gates. She had not walked into a job. She had walked into a war. The smell of blood didn't fade quickly. Even after the body was removed. Even after the carpet was ripped out and replaced before dawn. Even after the guards doubled and then tripled their patrols. Fear stayed. It curled into the corners of the mansion and waited. Nyx barely spoke the next morning. She sat at the breakfast table with Talia's hand locked in hers, knuckles white, eyes hollow. Draco picked at his food without tasting it. Dante pretended nothing had happened, which was always his way of screaming. Roman watched them all from the far end of the room. He had killed men before breakfast more times than he could count. But never in front of his children. Never in front of her. Talia kept her head down, her free hand shaking slightly as she poured juice. She had washed the blood off Nyx's face last night with trembling fingers. The child had not cried again after the first scream. That scared her more than the scream itself. You're staying today, Roman said suddenly. Talia looked up. Sir, you're not leaving the West Wing, he continued. Not with them. The guards shifted. Talia's stomach dropped. Leaving, like fired? No, he said calmly. Like protected. Draco's fork clattered. We're not babies. No, Roman said, eyes sharp. You're targets. Silence slammed into the table. Dante's bravado cracked for half a second. That guy was after you, wasn't he? Roman didn't answer. Nyx whispered, is he coming back? Talia tightened her grip on her hand. No. He's gone. That part, at least, was true. The lockdown began immediately. Windows sealed. Doors magnetized. Staff minimized. No unnecessary movement. The mansion shifted from home to bunker in less than 10 minutes. Talia felt it in the air. In the way guards no longer relaxed around corners. In the way radios never stopped murmuring. She had lived like this once before. She hated that her body remembered how. In the West Wing, the triplets tried to act normal. It didn't work. Draco paced. Dante picked fights over nothing. Nyx stayed glued to Talia's side like a shadow that breathed. Tell me a story, Nyx whispered in the afternoon when the silence became unbearable. Dante scoffed. We're not toddlers. Nyx didn't look at him. I said tell me a story. Talia hesitated. She hadn't told a story in years. Not since bedtime became a luxury. What kind? She asked. Something where no one dies, Nyx said. Draco froze. Dante's jaw tightened. Talia sat on the floor with them. She leaned against the bed, drew her knees up. Once, she began slowly, there was a little girl who lived in a house so loud no one could hear her cry. So she stopped crying. Instead, she listened. She listened so well that one day, she heard someone who needed her even more than she needed them. And when she helped that person, she found her own voice again. Nyx's eyes softened. Did they live? Talia swallowed. They lived. Draco whispered, did the bad people go away? Talia hesitated. Then, honestly, some did. Some didn't. But the girl learned how to fight them without becoming one of them. Dante said nothing. But he didn't mock her either. Roman stood alone in his office, staring at the security feed. His enemy had gotten too close. Someone high in his network had leaked movement patterns. This was no random breach. This was a message. You are not untouchable. His lieutenant entered quietly. We traced the intruder to Cade Orloff's territory. It was meant to reach you, not the kids. Roman's eyes flicked to the West Wing camera. They reached my kids, he said. Yes, the man said carefully. Roman turned slowly. Then I will reach his bones. The man nodded and turned to leave. Wait, Roman added. The lieutenant paused. Double the shadows on Talia Morgan, Roman said. Not the children. Her. The man frowned. Sir. She is the difference, Roman said simply. That evening, Talia stood in the hallway outside her room, staring at the locked door. It had never been locked before. She felt it like a weight. A guard cleared his throat beside her. Orders. I understand, she said quietly. She didn't like it. But she understood. Inside her room, she finally allowed herself to shake. Her phone buzzed again. A photo appeared on the screen. Her daughter asleep, curled into the neighbor's side, hair tangled, one small shoe kicked off. Talia slid down the wall and pressed her knuckles into her mouth to keep quiet. I'm trying, she whispered. I'm trying so hard. The fear that crept into her chest wasn't for herself. It was for the fact that she was starting to care if she survived. 2 days passed without another attack. But the tension only thickened. On the third night, the power went out. Every light snapped off at once. The mansion fell into pitch black. Screams erupted from the East Wing. Roman was already running. In the West Wing, Nyx clutched Talia's arm. It's happening again. Dante grabbed a metal lamp. Nobody move. Draco shook. Dad said we're safe. The door creaked. Slow. Deliberate. Talia's pulse thundered in her ears. Then the emergency lights surged on. Red glow flooded the room. 2 guards burst in. Power surge, 1 barked. False alarm. Nyx collapsed into Talia's lap, shaking violently. Talia held her tight, breathing with her until the tremors eased. Roman arrived moments later. He took in the scene at a glance. Nyx in Talia's arms. Dante gripping a weapon too big for him. Draco pale against the wall. Roman crouched in front of them. It's over, he said quietly. No one is coming in. Nyx peeked at him. You promise. Roman hesitated. Then he said yes. For the first time, he meant it. The next morning, something broke. Draco didn't wake up. He lay pale and burning with fever. The doctor arrived within minutes. Stress-induced illness, he said. His body finally crashed. Dante hovered near the bed, panicked. He never gets sick. Nyx refused to leave. Talia stayed at his side, cooling his forehead with damp cloths. Roman watched from the doorway, fists tight. This is my fault, Dante whispered suddenly. Talia looked at him sharply. No. We scared everyone away, he said. We scared Mom. Now we scared him into this. His voice cracked. Nyx pressed her face into Talia's shirt. Draco whimpered faintly. Talia leaned close to Dante. Being afraid doesn't make you dangerous. It makes you human. What you do next decides the rest. Dante nodded shakily. Roman saw it. The shift. The exact moment his son chose something other than destruction. That night, Draco's fever broke. The relief in the room was almost dizzying. Nix fell asleep holding his hand. Dante slumped in a chair by the window. Talia leaned against the wall, exhaustion washing over her. Roman stepped closer quietly. You saved him, he said. Talia shook her head. I just stayed. That's what saved him, Roman replied. Their eyes met. The air felt heavier. Why do you stay, he asked. She hesitated. Then softly, because they let me. Roman absorbed that in silence. He had never realized how rare permission was in his world. Later that night, Roman stood over the city from his balcony. The skyline glittered. Somewhere out there, enemies moved. Behind him, the West Wing slept. And a woman who was never supposed to last 48 hours now held his children together with nothing but presence and stubborn warmth. His phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. You can't hide what belongs to us. A photo followed. Talia's daughter. Roman's blood went cold. The war had just found its real leverage. And this time, it wasn't after him. It was after her. Roman did not reply to the message. He stood there on the balcony for a long time, staring at the glowing image on his phone like it might burn through his palm. A little girl. Asleep. Unaware. The same age as the nightmares in his house. He deleted the photo. Then he summoned hell. Talia sensed the change before anyone told her. The guards outside the West Wing multiplied. Footsteps never stopped. Radios whispered constantly. Even the air felt like it had teeth. She found Roman in the corridor just after lunch. You're hiding something, she said quietly. Roman stopped walking. Slowly turned. Most people would have backed down right then. She didn't. There was another threat, wasn't there? She pressed. Last night wasn't just about you anymore. Roman studied her for a long moment. The truth rose to his lips and stalled there. How old is your daughter? He asked instead. Talia's chest tightened. 5. Why? He searched her face. For lies. For danger. For weakness. All he found was fear. She is not in this house, he said carefully. No, Talia replied. She's with someone safe. Roman's joy tightened imperceptibly. There was no such thing as safe anymore. Not for anyone tied to him. He turned away. Go back to the children. Talia grabbed his sleeve. The guard stiffened instantly. Roman looked down at her hand. She released it slowly. Don't shut me out, she said softly. Not when your enemies don't care who they use. Roman's voice dropped to ice. You don't know what they use. I do, she whispered. Because I used to be what they used. That stopped him. He turned back fully now. The hallway seemed to shrink around them. What does that mean? He asked. Talia's breath shook. It means if they're circling, they're not done. And if they're quiet, they're getting closer. Silence thundered between them. Roman held her gaze. Then, finally, he nodded once. Stay with the children, he said. No matter what happens outside this wing. She nodded back. That won't be hard. That evening, Dante caught Talia staring at the locked doors. You're scared, he said. Everyone should be scared sometimes, she replied. It reminds you what matters. Draco shifted on the couch. Dad's people can't lose. Everyone says so. Talia looked at him gently. Everyone loses something eventually. Nix's fingers tightened in hers. Will we lose you? Nix asked in a tiny voice. The question hit harder than any gunshot. Talia crouched in front of her. Not today. Nix's lips trembled. Tomorrow. Talia swallowed. I'll tell you if that day ever comes. Nix wrapped her arms around Talia's neck and held on tight. Dante looked away. Draco bit his lip. Across the city, Cade Orloff watched the security feeds from a borrowed tower. So she matters, he murmured. A man beside him nodded. Deeply. Cade smiled thinly. Good. Then the king will bleed like everyone else. The next strike did not come to the mansion. It came to the hospital. The clinic where the neighbor had taken Talia's daughter for a routine checkup. 2 men entered. 1 left. The neighbor was found in the stairwell an hour later. Unconscious. Alive. Barely. Talia's daughter was gone. Roman learned first. The message came with coordinates. Exchange. Tonight. Roman crushed the phone in his fist. His lieutenant stared in shock. They took her daughter? Roman said nothing. The man took a breath. Sir, that changes everything. Roman finally looked up. You think, he asked quietly. Talia learned 5 minutes later. Roman did not sugar it. The child is gone, he said flatly. The world tipped sideways. Talia stared at him, unblinking. Say that again. They took her, he repeated. Her legs gave out. She hit the floor hard. Nick screamed. Draco bolted upright. Dante stood frozen. Roman caught Talia before her head struck the marble. She clawed at his shirt. You promised, she choked. You promised I could keep her safe by staying here. Roman's jaw tightened. This is my fault. Her sob tore through the hall. They're going to kill her. No, Roman said immediately. They want leverage. She lives as long as you do. That didn't comfort her. It horrified her. The children heard everything. Nick shook violently. They took her baby? Talia couldn't speak. Draco's face drained of color. Because of us? Dante stepped forward. Take me instead. The words fell like glass. Roman looked at him sharply. That won't happen. I can handle it, Dante insisted, hands shaking. I won't cry. I swear. Talia collapsed to her knees in front of him. No. No more children pay for adults' wars. Nyx wrapped her arms around Talia's shoulders. We won't let them take anyone else. Roman closed his eyes briefly. His children had just learned a lesson most people never survived. Preparation began instantly. Weapons loaded. Routes planned. Traps built. Roman did not plan to negotiate. He planned to erase. But Talia stopped him. You can't kill him before I see her, she whispered. Please. Roman looked into her swollen eyes. The part of him that ruled cities wanted to dismiss emotion. The part that now watched 3 terrified children cling to her did not. She will be returned alive, he said. I swear it. Night swallowed the city. The exchange point was an abandoned rail yard. Roman arrived with a single convoy. No show of excess power. That was how he told Cade he was willing to burn the entire world if he had to. Talia rode beside him in silence. Her hands shook nonstop. She whispered her daughter's name over and over under her breath like a prayer that never finished. In the back seat, Dante whispered to Draco, "This is our fault." Draco whispered back, "Then we'll help fix it." Nyx just watched the dark road. At the yard, a single figure stood beneath a flickering light. Cade Orloff. Where is she? Talia screamed before the cars had even fully stopped. Cade smiled. Is that any way to greet a man who held your baby so gently? Roman's gun was already aimed. Bring her, Roman said calmly. Or every man you've ever touched dies screaming tonight. Cade gestured. Another car rolled forward. The door opened. A small figure stumbled out. Talia's scream ripped the night apart. Mama! She broke free before anyone could stop her. Roman moved at the same time. But the gunshot came faster. A sniper. Hidden. Aimed at Roman. Talia was directly in the line of fire. Nyx's scream echoed from the car. Roman threw himself into Talia's path and fired blindly at the roofline. The sniper dropped. Cade lunged for the child. Talia collided with him like a storm. Roman's men surged forward. Gunfire detonated across the yard. In the chaos, Talia clawed her daughter free and fell to the ground, shielding her with her own body. Roman stood over them, a wall of death. Minutes later, it was over. Cade Orloff lay bleeding on concrete. Alive. Barely. Roman dragged him forward by the collar until he knelt in front of Talia. Look at her, Roman said quietly. Cade coughed blood and laughed weakly. You grew soft. Roman pulled the trigger. Once. The war ended with a sound like punctuation. Talia held her daughter all the way home. She didn't cry. She just rocked. The children hovered like silent guardians. Back at the mansion, Nyx touched the little girl's hair. She's real. Draco whispered, you didn't lose her. Dante said nothing. He just sat down hard and shook. Later that night, Roman stood with Talia on the same balcony where everything had shifted. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you breaking, he said. She looked at him tiredly. You don't get to choose when I break. He accepted that. I don't leave people unavenged, he said. She nodded. Neither do I. They stood in silence. 2 survivors who had never planned to share a battlefield. Inside, 3 children slept for the first time without fear sitting on their chests. But far beneath that peace, something deeper had changed. Because war hadn't just come to their door. It had bound them together. Morning arrived quietly, like it was afraid of what it might wake. The mansion did not feel victorious. It felt wounded. Talia woke on the couch in the West Wing with her daughter curled against her chest, tiny fingers knotted in her shirt. The child's breathing was uneven, little hiccups still trapped between sleep and memory. Talia didn't move. Her body ached, but she stayed still, afraid even breathing too deep might remind her daughter where she'd been. Across the room, Nyx lay on the floor with a blanket pulled up to her chin. Draco slept in an armchair, twisted awkwardly. Dante sat upright against the wall, eyes open, watching the door like he'd been standing guard all night. Roman stood in the doorway. He hadn't left. Talia's eyes met his over her daughter's head. She fell asleep an hour ago, she whispered. Roman nodded. We're safe. The words sounded fragile. Talia shifted carefully and laid her daughter onto the couch cushion. The little girl stirred, murmured something unintelligible, then settled again. Nyx lifted her head immediately. She okay? Talia nodded. She's exhausted. Nyx crawled over and sat beside the couch, watching the small face like it might disappear again if she blinked. Draco rubbed his eyes. Is the bad man gone? Yes, Roman said. He won't hurt anyone again. Dante didn't relax. You said that before about others. Roman knelt slowly in front of him. I didn't lie then either. But this world doesn't stop trying. Dante searched his face. Then why do you keep fighting it? Roman hesitated. He glanced at Talia's sleeping child. Because sometimes it gives me a reason to. The doctor arrived later that morning to examine the little girl. Physically unharmed. Emotionally shaken. She'll have nightmares, the doctor said gently. Clinging. Fear of separation. It's normal after trauma like this. Talia's hands trembled. Will she forget? The doctor shook his head. No. But she'll learn how to live with it. The way we all do. After he left, Talia sat on the edge of the couch, staring at nothing. Nyx approached slowly. Did they scare her like we scared you? Talia flinched. Dante looked away. Draco swallowed. Talia reached for Nyx's hand. They scared her. But they didn't break her. Nyx whispered, you didn't break either. Talia closed her eyes for a moment. I almost did. Roman had overheard that. The words stayed with him all day. By afternoon, the estate began to breathe again. Staff returned. The lockdown eased. Radios softened. But something inside the walls had shifted permanently. Talia sat in the garden with her daughter in her lap, while Nyx braided flowers into the little girl's hair. Draco built something crooked out of sticks. Dante pretended not to watch but hovered nearby like a stray protector. Roman observed from the terrace. Not from shadows this time. From the open. His lieutenant stepped beside him. You erase Cade's entire chain by sunset. Roman nodded. There will be retaliation from smaller factions, the man warned. Let them try, Roman said. The man hesitated. The woman and the children, their weaknesses now. Roman's jaw tightened. They're anchors. That makes you predictable. No, Roman replied. It makes me accountable. The man had no answer for that. That evening, Talia finally put her daughter into a bed that felt safe again. The triplets gathered in the doorway, awkward and unsure. Nyx held out a stuffed toy from her own bed. She can borrow this. The little girl clutched it instantly. Draco scratched his head. She likes dinosaurs. I have a lot. Dante shoved his hands into his pockets. If anyone scares her again, I'll break their legs. Talia almost laughed. Almost cried. She knelt in front of them. You don't have to protect her by hurting people. Just be kind to her. Nyx nodded solemnly. We can do that. When the door closed, Talia leaned against it and slid down slowly. Roman stood at the end of the hall. He said quietly, you didn't run. She looked at him with tired eyes. Where would I go? With your daughter, he said. Away from this. Talia stood again. If I run now, they learn it works. I won't teach them that. Roman studied her. You'd stay here after everything? Yes. For your job. For your children, she said softly. Roman's breath stuttered in a way it never had in battle. The real storm came 3 nights later. It came wrapped in silence and betrayal. One of Roman's own men opened a gate. Just for a minute. Just long enough. Explosions thundered across the south wall. Gunfire shredded the hedges. The mansion shook. Nyx screamed first. Roman was already moving. Talia, West Wing. Lock everything. Talia grabbed the children and ran. This time, Dante ran without resistance. Draco didn't argue. Nyx didn't hesitate. They slammed into the West Wing safe room just as the first wave hit the interior halls. The door sealed shut with a heavy mechanical thud. Darkness swallowed the room. Outside, chaos erupted. Inside, the children shook. They're coming, Draco whispered. No, Talia said firmly. They're not. How do you know? Dante snapped. Because they want him, she replied. Not us. Nyx whispered, last time they wanted her baby too. Talia's heart twisted. Not tonight. The blast rattled the door. Draco screamed. The lights flickered. Roman fought like a ghost through the smoke. Room to room. Floor to floor. Blood followed him like a shadow. His lieutenant fell in the north stairwell. The traitor died against the gate he had opened. 20 minutes later, the last shot faded. Silence rushed in like a held breath finally released. Roman limped to the West Wing with blood on his hands that wasn't all his. He keyed in the override. The door unsealed. Talia stood directly in front of him with the children behind her. Her eyes swept his body instantly. You're hurt. He shook his head. Not badly. She didn't argue. She stepped forward and touched his arm. He flinched. Not from pain. From being seen. Later, after the bodies were cleared and the alarms quieted, Roman sat alone on the steps outside the West Wing. Talia approached with a glass of water. You should let the doctor look at that, she said. In a minute, he replied. She sat beside him. He stared straight ahead. I built all this to keep death outside. It doesn't listen to walls, she said. No, he admitted. But sometimes it listens to reasons. She looked at him. Do your children feel like reasons? He didn't answer at first. Then, quietly, they feel like consequences. She considered that. Those are heavier. Yes. They sat in silence. Then he asked, why did you come here in the first place? She looked down at her hands. Because I had nothing left that felt safe. And now? She looked at the West Wing door. Now I have too much to abandon. Roman closed his eyes briefly. The next morning, Dante refused breakfast. I'm not hungry. Talia sat across from him. You didn't sleep either. He shrugged. Didn't feel like it. She studied him. Do you feel guilty or scared? His jaw tightened. Both. Good, she said gently. He snapped his head up. How is that good? Because those feelings mean you still care what you become. He stared at his plate. I don't want to be like him. Then don't, she replied. It's not that easy. No, she agreed. It's harder. But it's possible. Draco pushed his plate toward Dante. Eat mine too. I don't want it. Dante blinked. Why? Draco shrugged. You look worse than me. Dante let out a weak breath of a laugh. Nyx watched it all quietly. Then she whispered to Talia, do bad people ever stop being bad? Talia thought of Cade. Of the traitor. Of the men who had smiled while hurting. Some don't, she said. But some do. And some never get the chance. Nyx swallowed. Dad, could he stop? Talia hesitated. Roman stood in the doorway. He heard every word. Yes, Talia said finally. If he wants to badly enough. Roman did not leave. That afternoon, Roman did something no one in the city expected. He shut down 3 of his most violent routes. His men protested. His enemies noticed. Power shifted. Blood did not immediately follow. The children noticed too. Dante stared at his father over the railing. Did you just cancel a war? Roman looked up at him. I postponed 3. Draco blinked. Why? Roman glanced at Talia standing behind them. Because there are children in this house now. There were always children, Dante said. Roman's voice lowered. Now I notice. That night, the little girl had her first nightmare. She screamed herself awake, shaking violently. The triplets rushed in before Talia even reached the bed. Nyx climbed under the blanket and held her. Draco brought water. Dante stood guard at the door. The little girl sobbed in Nyx's arms. They took me again. Nyx whispered fiercely, they can't. We won't let them. Dante added, nobody gets past us. Draco nodded. Ever. Talia watched with tears streaming silently down her face. Across the hall, Roman leaned against the wall with his fist pressed to his mouth. He had ruled empires. But this terrified him more than all of them combined. Because for the first time, he had something that could truly break him. And he was starting to understand that the woman who had survived his house for more than 48 hours had become the most dangerous thing in it. Not because she fought, but because she made people want to stop. The change didn't happen all at once. It came in tiny, stubborn moments that refused to be ignored. Roman began coming home before midnight. At first, the staff thought it was coincidence. Then they realized his schedule had been rewritten around dinners that didn't end in gunfire. The city adjusted because it had to. The triplets noticed first. Dante sprawled upside down on the sofa one evening and squinted at his father across the room. You're early again. Roman removed his jacket slowly. Observant. Suspicious, Draco corrected. Nyx tilted her head. Are you hiding from someone? Roman paused. Then calmly, I'm choosing where I'm needed. Nyx looked at Talia. That's new. Talia smiled faintly. People change. Dante scoffed. People pretend. Roman met his gaze. Sometimes that's how change starts. Dante didn't answer. But he didn't argue either. Talia began taking small steps outside the West Wing again. Short walks in the garden. Supervised trips to the kitchen. Every time she returned safely, the walls loosened their grip just a bit. Her daughter started laughing again. Soft at first. Then louder. Nyx taught her how to braid flower chains. Draco showed her how to hide behind hedges and jump out dramatically. Dante chased her through the grass until both of them collapsed breathless on the lawn. Roman watched from the balcony. He had never seen his children play like this. Not without danger in their movements. Not without mock violence threaded through their joy. This was different. This was light. It unsettled him more than darkness ever had. The city reacted. Rivals tested boundaries. Shipments slowed. Territories shifted. Whispers spread. Blackwood is soft now. Roman did not deny it. He let them think it. Then, one night, he dismantled an entire underground ring without a single death. The message was clear. He was not weak. He was choosing restraint. To his enemies, it was unpredictable. To his children, it was confusing. To Talia, it was everything. One afternoon, while the children were in the garden and Roman was in his office, Talia finally broke. She stood in the kitchen staring at the counter where she had first made breakfast. Her hands began to shake. It hit her all at once. The freezer. The gunshots. Her daughter's scream. The image of the sniper's bullet path. Her breath came fast and shallow. She dropped to the floor like her knees had given up without asking her permission. A sob ripped free. Then another. She folded in on herself. Nix found her like that. She froze in the doorway for a second. Then ran. Dad, she screamed. Something's wrong with Talia. Roman reached the kitchen in seconds. He found her on the floor, shaking violently, gasping like she was drowning. Nix clung to her arm. Make her stop hurting. Roman knelt and pulled Talia upright against his chest. Breathe, he said quietly into her ear. In. Out. With me. She fought it. Her body refused. He tightened his hold, grounding her. You are here. Not there. You are here. Her breathing stuttered. Slowed. Collapsed into broken sobs against his chest. Draco hovered nearby, terrified. Did we do something wrong? Roman shook his head without looking at him. No. Dante stood frozen, fists clenched. Nix whispered, she was fine yesterday. Talia finally drew a deep, shuddering breath. I wasn't, she whispered hoarsely. I just hit it better. Roman lifted her gently. Take the children outside, he said calmly. They obeyed without argument. He carried her to the couch in the West Wing and sat beside her as she cried without shame or apology. I didn't think I survived, she whispered. I thought I just ran. Roman did not try to stop her tears. I didn't think I'd ever feel safe enough to fall apart, she said. He absorbed every word. Safety exposes what fear keeps locked away, he replied. She looked at him through red, swollen eyes. You sound like you've done this before. I've buried it instead, he said. She let out a fragile, broken laugh. That explains a lot. Silence settled between them. Not uncomfortable, just heavy. Later that night, Talia sat on the edge of her daughter's bed watching her sleep. The girl stirred and mumbled, Mama. Talia leaned forward. I'm here. The triplets lingered in the doorway. Dante cleared his throat. You scared us. She gave a tired smile. You scare me all the time too. That earned the smallest flicker of a grin. Nix stepped closer. You're not leaving, right? Talia hesitated. Not because she wanted to. Because she was afraid of the truth. I don't plan to, she said. Nix wrapped her arms around her waist tightly. Roman watched this exchange from the hallway. Something inside him finally settled. A dangerous thing. Hope. The strike that followed proved just how dangerous that hope was. A coordinated hit. 3 locations. 1 decoy. 2 real targets. Roman was pulled toward the decoy. The real strike came for the West Wing. The alarms howled too late. The outer door blew inward. Shrapnel tore through the corridor. Talia was already pushing the children toward the panic room when the first man reached the hallway. Dante tackled him without hesitation. The gun went off. Draco screamed. Nix froze. Roman arrived a heartbeat later and ended it with 3 shots. More men surged in. Bullets slammed into walls. Glass shattered. Talia shielded the little girl with her body. Nix grabbed Draco. Dante stood in front of them, shaking but unmoving. Roman tore through the attackers like a storm breaking loose. When the last man fell, the corridor was unrecognizable. Smoke hung thick. Blood streaked the walls. Dante collapsed to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Roman went to him instantly. You did well, he said firmly. Too well. No more of that. Dante clung to his father's shirt. I thought they were going to take her again. Roman looked at Talia holding her daughter in the corner, both shaking violently but alive. No, he said quietly. No one takes from us anymore. After that night, nothing could pretend to be normal again. The children stopped seeing their father as invincible. Roman stopped seeing them as collateral. And Talia stopped pretending she could remain untouched by this world. They were bound. Whether they wanted to be or not. The city changed its tone. People whispered differently. Blackwood wasn't just feared now. He was protected by something people didn't understand. A household that should have been broken, but wasn't. A woman who should have left, but stayed. Children who should have been monsters, but chose not to be. The empire adjusted around them. And in the quiet after that last attack, Roman made a decision that would ripple far beyond his walls. One he had never once considered before. He began planning an exit. Not from power. From legacy. And the closer he moved toward that choice, the more dangerous his world became for everyone inside it. Because the moment a king decides to step down, every shadow wants his throne. And this time, his enemies would not hesitate to aim for the only heart he had left to lose. Roman kept the plan quiet. Not because his enemies were everywhere, but because the people closest to him were the ones most likely to break it. He began shifting assets slowly, one business at a time, one route rerouted, one ally released from obligation. To the outside world, it looked like strategy. To the inner circle, it felt like retreat. And retreat was blood in the water. Talia sensed it first. Not through guards or radios. Through absence. Roman missed 2 dinners in a row. On the 3rd night, Dante finally said what all of them were thinking. He's disappearing again. Nyx stared down at her plate. He only disappears when something bad is happening. Draco poked at his food. Or when he's planning something stupid. Talia tried to keep her voice calm. Your father doesn't make stupid plans. Dante looked at her sharply. He makes lonely ones. That landed harder than anyone expected. Roman's younger brother, Lucian Blackwood, arrived that night. Unannounced. Uninvited. Unsmiling. He walked into the mansion like he still owned it. Lucian had the same eyes as Roman. But where Roman's were controlled fire, Lucian's burned recklessly. Took you long enough to let me in again, Lucian said as Roman met him in the lower hall. You were barred, Roman replied. Lucian smirked. You can't bar blood. Roman's gaze hardened. Watch me. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Lucian glanced past him into the mansion. Toward the west wing. And you filled the house with children and a nanny, Lucian murmured. Interesting replacement for soldiers. Roman stepped into his line of sight. State your purpose. Lucian's smile faded. You're weakening the empire. Roman didn't deny it. I'm redirecting it. Toward what? Lucian scoffed. Domestic peace? Toward survival, Roman said. Lucian laughed softly. You've always been afraid of being alone. Roman's voice dropped. And you've always mistaken loneliness for power. Talia watched from the staircase as the 2 brothers argued in silence too heavy to be private. She felt the danger in the air. Lucian's eyes swept over the house. Over the guards. Over her. Lingering. Later that night, as she tucked her daughter into bed, Nyx whispered from the doorway. That man smells like trouble. Talia hesitated. Why do you say that? Nyx frowned. He looks at people like he's deciding where they fit when they're gone. Talia's chest tightened. Children saw things adults learned to ignore. Roman's shift accelerated after Lucian's visit. More territories dissolved. More alliances severed. More men quietly released from service with cash and new identities. Whispers turned into warnings. Blackwood is stepping down. The vacuum began to breathe. Lucian did not hide his interest in the West Wing. He found reasons to linger. To pass through. To ask thinly veiled questions. So, he said one afternoon as Talia was helping the little girl draw in the garden, "You're the woman who made my brother forget what he is." Talia looked up slowly. "I didn't change who he is." Lucian smiled lazily. "That's what everyone who changes a man believes." Talia held his gaze. "And what do you believe?" Lucian's eyes drifted toward the children. "That the fastest way to control a king is through what he refuses to sacrifice." Talia's pulse thudded hard. She said evenly, "You're not welcome near them." Lucian laughed under his breath. "You think you get to decide that?" Her reply came quiet and lethal. "I think I already did." Lucian studied her for a beat longer. Then he walked away. But not without planning. That night, Dante overheard a guard talking. "I don't trust the brother," the man whispered. "He's moving people behind Roman's back." Dante slipped away silently. He found Draco and Nyx in the West Wing and told them everything. Nyx's face went pale. "He wants Dad's throne." Draco swallowed. "That means, he wants Dad gone." Dante clenched his fists. Or worse. They all thought of the same thing at once. Talia. The little girl. Their family. The test came 3 days later. Roman was pulled away to handle a border dispute. Lucian made his move that same night. The West Wing security went dark for 30 seconds. Just 30. It was enough. 2 men breached the corridor. Silent. Fast. Talia was halfway through reading a bedtime story when the door shook violently. Nyx screamed. Draco leapt up. Dante shoved the desk against the door with everything he had. "Panic room," Talia shouted. The little girl froze in terror. The door splintered inward. The first attacker forced his way through. Then stopped. Because Dante attacked him like he'd been waiting for this moment his entire life. The gun flew. Draco jumped on it. The second man burst in. Nick screamed again. Talia grabbed the little girl and ran. She slammed into the panic room keypad with shaking hands. The second man reached for her. Draco tackled him from behind. The man threw him off like nothing. Talia shoved the girl inside and turned back just in time to see Dante get slammed into the wall. Nyx was dragged across the floor. Draco was pinned. The door to the panic room was inches from closing. Talia made a choice without thinking. She stepped forward. "Take me," she said. Every movement froze. The attackers turned. Nyx screamed no. The man smiled. "That's exactly what we planned." Roman's voice boomed from the doorway. "You planned poorly." Gunfire detonated. Both men dropped in seconds. Lucien stepped forward behind Roman, slow clapping softly. "Impressive," Lucien said. "You made it back in time." Roman turned to him slowly. "Security failure traced to your access codes," Roman said. "Do you deny it?" Lucien spread his hands. "I was curious what you would choose. Your throne, or them." Roman stared at him, then pulled the trigger. The shot shattered the hull. Lucien fell, clutching his chest. Not dead, but broken. Roman walked over him. "You were never my brother," he said quietly. "You were just a test I kept failing." Lucien laughed weakly as blood stained his shirt. "You chose them." Roman didn't look back. Every time. After the attackers were cleared, after Lucien was dragged away in restraints, after the children were checked and rechecked, after the trembling slowed into quiet shock, the house fell into a silence that felt final. Talia sat on the floor with the little girl asleep in her lap. Nyx leaned against her side. Draco's head rested on her knee. Dante sat opposite them, silent. Roman stood in the doorway, staring at the blood on the floor. "I almost made you expendable," he said quietly. Talia looked up at him. "You didn't," she replied. "You made a choice." Roman nodded once. Outside, the Empire shifted again. But inside that broken hallway, something solidified beyond negotiation. And every enemy who had been waiting for the king to stumble now understood the truth. Roman Blackwood no longer fought for power. He fought for people. And that made him unstoppable in a way no throne ever had. The city answered Roman's choice with fire. Not all at once. Not blindly. Strategically. By dawn, 3 allied warehouses burned. By noon, 2 former partners vanished. By nightfall, the streets whispered one word with new weight. War. Not the kind Roman had waged for years. This one wasn't about territory. It was about removing him. Talia felt it in the air before anyone spoke it out loud. The guards moved differently. Faster. Tighter. Radios never silent. Even the children sensed it. Draco whispered that evening, "This feels worse than before." Nyx nodded. Before they wanted power. Now they want punishment. Dante looked at Talia. "For Dad, or for us?" Talia didn't answer immediately. "Because the truth was cruel." "Both," she said finally. Roman did not lie to his children this time. He gathered them in the West Wing. No guards. No weapons in sight. Just him. "This city is going to test what I chose," he said calmly. "You are not the target. But you are the reason." Nyx's voice trembled. "Is that bad?" "No," Roman said. "It's dangerous." Draco swallowed hard. "Are you going to die?" Roman didn't dodge the question. "Possibly," he said. Dante's chair scraped loudly as he stood. "Then we're not hiding anymore." Roman looked at him sharply. "You will do exactly the opposite." Talia stepped forward. "You don't get to plan this without me anymore." Roman didn't argue. He just nodded. The coalition formed quietly. 6 factions. All threatened by Roman's refusal to keep feeding the machine. They planned one strike. Not assassination. Erasure. They wanted to wipe out the Blackwood name in one night. The evacuation began at sunset. Not announced. Not dramatic. Just cars moving one by one through underground exits. Safe houses. Layered defenses. Roman refused to leave the estate until the last convoy cleared. Talia refused to leave until Roman did. And the children refused to leave without both of them. "So we stay together," Nyx said stubbornly. Draco nodded. "We always survive better together." Dante looked at Roman. "You taught us that by accident." Roman felt something crack behind his ribs. The first blast hit the south wall at 11:17 p.m. The second took out the generator. The third shattered the garden. The night split open. Roman moved like instinct given human shape. "Talia, West Wing tunnels." "Now." She grabbed her daughter. Nyx grabbed Draco. Dante ran point. Smoke tore through the halls. Men flooded the perimeter. Gunfire cut through marble and memory alike. Roman fought to clear a path. Bodies fell. More kept coming. "They're forcing us into the tunnels," Dante shouted. "That's the plan," Roman replied. "They want me underground." Talia screamed as a blast threw them sideways. Roman caught her mid-fall. The little girl sobbed uncontrollably. "We're not going to make it," Draco whispered. Talia looked at Roman. Not with fear. With question. Roman gave the only honest answer he had. "We make it, or we end it here together." The tunnel entrance sealed behind them. Dark swallowed everything. Emergency lights pulsed weak red. The tunnels were ancient, built for escape long before this war. But now, the war followed them inside. The coalition cut power from above. The tunnels became a maze of blind corners and echoing steps. "This way," Roman ordered. They ran. Shots rang out behind them. A grenade bounced along the tunnel floor. Roman threw himself over the blast. The shockwave crushed the air from Talia's lungs. Everything went silent. Talia woke choking on dust. Her ears rang. She couldn't feel her right arm. Then she heard it. "Mom." Her daughter's voice. "Alive." Nyx crying. Draco groaning. Dante shouting Roman's name. Roman lay motionless against the tunnel wall. Blood soaked his side. Talia crawled to him with one working arm. "Stay with me," she whispered desperately. "You don't get to leave now." His eyes fluttered. He forced them open. "I said, possibly." She laughed through tears. "Shut up." Footsteps echoed. The coalition had found the tunnel. Dante grabbed a fallen weapon. "I'll hold them." "No," Roman rasped. Nyx stood in front of Talia and the little girl with shaking hands. "We all hold them." Draco swallowed. Like before. Roman tried to rise. Failed. Talia pressed her forehead to his. "If this is the end," she whispered, "you did not fail them." His hand weakly curled around hers. "I finally chose right," he murmured. The first enemy rounded the corner. Gunfire exploded. The tunnel became chaos. Dante fired wildly. Draco covered him. Nyx shielded the little girl with her own body. Talia dragged Roman backward inch by inch. More enemies surged. The coalition wanted it messy. They wanted witnesses. Just before the final wave hit, a new sound tore through the gunfire. Heavy. Mechanical. Unstoppable. Armored vehicles burst through the far tunnel wall. Floodlights slammed on. Roman's allies. The last ones he hadn't dissolved. The ones he had freed quietly. Men who now chose to return. The coalition was caught between walls of fire. Within minutes, the tunnel was silent again. Except for breathing. Shaking. Alive. Hours later, dawn bled weak light through the ruined estate. The coalition was crushed. Not erased. Exposed. Every name leaked. Every betrayal published. The city turned on itself. Roman survived surgery by a margin too thin to measure. He did not wake for 2 days. Talia never left his side. The children rotated shifts like guards. On the second night, Dante whispered at Roman's bedside, "You're not allowed to die." "I'm not done being mad at you yet." Nyx whispered, "You still owe me 3 answers." Draco whispered, "We didn't run." Talia said nothing. She just held his hand. When Roman finally woke, his first words were not about war. They stayed. Talia smiled through exhaustion. "They always do." His gaze drifted to the children asleep on chairs and the floor. Then back to her. "You should leave now," he whispered. "Before the next storm finds us." Talia leaned closer. "There is no leaving after choosing," she said softly. Roman closed his eyes again. This time, not from pain, but from relief. Outside, the city quietly adjusted to a truth it could no longer deny. Roman Blackwood was no longer a king clinging to a throne. He was a man who had survived the final test. Not of power, but of love. The machines quieted first. Then the alarms. Then slowly the fear. Roman's recovery was not dramatic. No sudden way up with shouts and strength. It came the way real healing did. In inches. In breaths. In mornings where the light hurt his eyes and nights where pain reminded him that he was still alive. The children took turns sitting with him like guards on rotation. Draco read out loud from books he barely understood. Nyx talked to him even when he slept, whispering about the little girl's drawings, the garden, the birds that came back after the explosion stopped. Dante sat the longest in silence. Watching. Waiting. Talia never left the room. Not once. She slept sitting up. Ate standing. Washed blood from her hands and went right back to holding his. On the 4th night, Roman finally spoke clearly. "You look worse than I do." Talia let out a broken laugh that turned into a sob before she could stop it. "You don't get to joke," she whispered. "You almost died." He shifted with effort. "So did you. And you stayed." "I stayed because I was afraid," she said. His eyes lifted to hers. "Of losing me?" She hesitated. Then told the truth. "Of losing everything again." Roman absorbed that quietly. The room held still around them. When Roman was strong enough to walk, the West Wing felt different. Not like a shelter. Like a home that had survived a storm. The little girl ran through the halls again. Her laughter echoed softly instead of bouncing off fear. The triplets followed her like shadows that had learned how to smile. Roman watched them from the doorway one evening as they sat on the floor drawing together. Nyx handed him a crayon. "You're supposed to be resting, but you can color." Draco frowned. "Don't give him black. He'll make everything sad." Dante smirked. "Give him red. That one he understands." Roman took the crayon. He drew a crooked house, with 5 stick figures inside it. Talia's breath caught. Nyx stared at it. "That's us, right?" Roman nodded. No one said anything for a long time after that. The city shifted without asking for permission. Power always did. Some factions vanished. Others merged. New leaders rose quietly from the ruins left behind by the war that failed. Roman did not reclaim everything he lost. On purpose. Instead, he dismantled what no longer needed to exist. Routes closed. Debt chains broken. Men who had lived by the gun were given exits that did not end in graves. Not all took them, but enough did to change the tone of the streets. People began whispering a different thing now. Not that Blackwood was weak, but that Blackwood had stopped playing the same game. And that made him the most dangerous man left. One quiet afternoon, Talia stood in the garden watching the little girl chase butterflies with Nyx. Draco counted each one like it was a mission. Dante leaned against the fence, pretending not to watch too closely. Roman joined her. "You could leave now," he said quietly. She looked at him. "Why do you keep offering that?" "Because the world will always come for me," he said. "And I don't want it taking you with it." She met his eyes. "You think danger is why I stayed? Isn't it?" She shook her head. "I stayed because they needed something you couldn't give them alone. And because I needed something I stopped believing was real." "What?" he asked. She watched the children laugh. "A future that isn't built on survival." Roman was silent for a long time. Then he said, "I don't know how to give them that." "You don't give it," she replied. "You protect the space for it to grow." He considered that. For the first time, power felt smaller than purpose. That night, the children ate together at the long dining table for the first time since the war. No guards in the room. No radios whispering. Just plates. Food. Light. Draco took a bite and paused. "This feels illegal." Nyx giggled. "It's called peace. You're not used to it." Dante eyed Roman. "Is this permanent?" Roman didn't answer immediately. He looked at Talia. Then at his children. Then at the little girl who was now feeding rice to Nyx with serious concentration. "As permanent as I can make it," he said. Dante nodded slowly. "Good. Because I'm tired." It was the softest confession he had ever made. Later that night, the little girl climbed into Talia's lap. "Are the bad men gone forever now?" she asked. Talia smoothed her hair. "Some are. Some change. Some just stop trying." The child thought about that. "Will the scary house stay nice?" she asked. Talia looked up at Roman. Roman answered, "It already is." Weeks passed. No attacks. No alarms. No midnight evacuations. The silence settled differently now. Not tense. Earned. Roman stood on the balcony one evening, watching the city glow, without feeling like it was breathing down his neck. Talia joined him with 2 cups of tea. They stood side by side without urgency. "I never asked what really happened to you before this house," Roman said quietly. "You didn't need to," she replied. "No," he admitted. "But I want to." She took a breath. "Then one day I'll tell you," she said. "When it's no longer the thing that defines me." Roman nodded. He understood that better than anyone. The triplets changed in ways even they didn't notice at first. Draco stopped hoarding sharp objects. Nyx stopped sleeping with the light on. Dante stopped flinching at sudden sounds. They still argued. Still made messes. Still tested limits. But they no longer tested whether people would leave. One evening, Nyx asked Talia, "Did we break you when you first came?" Talia thought about the freezer. The bruises. The fear. Then she smiled gently. "No," she said. "You showed me where I was already broken. And then you helped me heal." Nyx absorbed that seriously. Draco added, "So, breakfast saved all of us?" Dante rolled his eyes. "Obviously." But his voice didn't mock it this time. On the anniversary of the day Talia first walked through the gates, Roman did something that shocked the remaining city power players. He introduced her. Not as staff. Not as a temporary figure. As family. The rumors exploded. The reactions were divided. But inside the mansion, nothing changed. And that was the point. Late one night, long after the house had settled into sleep, Roman found Talia in the kitchen, making the same simple breakfast that started everything. "You still cook like you're afraid it will disappear," he said. She smiled faintly. "Because once it almost did." He stood beside her. You stayed when everyone else ran, he said. She cracked an egg gently. You stopped when everyone else kept going. Their eyes met. No war. No fear. Just two survivors standing in a quiet kitchen that used to be a battlefield. The children wandered in one by one and took their seats without being called. That alone would have sounded impossible a year ago. Nix leaned over to the little girl. You know, this used to be the scariest house in the whole city. The child looked around at the warm light, the food, the people. It doesn't feel scary. Nix smiled softly. That's because you're here now. Talia swallowed hard. Roman watched them all and finally understood something he never had before. Power could make people bow. Fear could make people obey. But only love had ever made anyone stay. And so the house that no nanny survived for 48 hours became the place no one wanted to leave. Not because it was safe from the world, but because inside it, the world had finally learned how to be human. If this story moved you even a little, tap that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling us which moment stayed with you the most.